Tom Reed stood at the large window of his office, high up in the Galactic Council Tower. The view was breathtaking. 3 massive suns were setting over the capital city below, casting their golden light across the sprawling metropolis. But Tom wasn't admiring the beauty of the scene. His mind was elsewhere, focused on what lay ahead. 50 years. It had been 50 long years since humanity had first joined the Galactic Council. 50 years of sitting in council meetings, listening to the same speeches, enduring the same patronizing attitudes from species that thought themselves superior. 50 years of being treated like children who needed guidance, rather than respected equals. But today, Tom felt something different. Today, everything was going to change. He clenched his hands behind his back, feeling the tension in his body rise. Every day of those 50 years had built to this moment. Every small slight, every disrespectful comment, every patronizing gesture, it had all led to this. Today, humanity would no longer sit quietly. Today, the galaxy would learn to respect Earth. Tom glanced down at his desk. The message from Earth Command sat open on his screen, and its words were simple, but their meaning was powerful. Preparations complete. Proceed as planned. His heart beat a little faster as he read it again. The plan was set. Humanity was ready to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. A soft chime from his computer broke his thoughts. Ambassador Reed, the voice of his assistant, came through the speaker. The council session begins in 10 minutes. Tom stood tall and straightened his black suit, checking his reflection in the polished glass of his office. At 65 years old, his hair had turned completely white, but his sharp blue eyes still held the fire they had when he was young. Unlike many of the other ambassadors who had chosen to use life extension technology to stay young forever, Tom had let himself age naturally. The other species found it odd, but Tom believed it kept him grounded. It reminded him of time, of what truly mattered. As he walked out of his office and down the long hallway toward the council chamber, Tom couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to happen. The atmosphere was thick with tension. For years, he had listened to the same accusations from the council. Humanity was too fast, too reckless, too unpredictable. They had warned him again and again that humanity's rapid technological advancements were a danger to the galaxy. They feared Earth's colonies, its military power, and its expanding reach into the stars. But today, Tom wasn't going to listen to their warnings. He wasn't going to sit quietly and let them dictate humanity's future. He was going to take a stand. Today, the galaxy would see that humanity was no longer the underdog. The council chamber was massive, towering over Tom as he entered. The seats stretched out in a circular formation, rising higher and higher as they curved around the central speaking platform. Thousands of alien species filled the room, their faces a mix of curiosity and concern. Some of them looked almost human, while others were so different that they barely seemed alive at all. Tom took his seat in the human section, nodding briefly to his staff. They were all prepared, though their faces showed little emotion. They knew what was coming, and they understood that there was no turning back now. The council had crossed a line by treating humanity like this. Today, Tom was going to show them that the humans would no longer be pushed around. The sound of a voice echoed through the chamber as Council Speaker Martin, a tall, blue-skinned alien, stood at the front of the room. "We gather today," he said in a deep, booming voice, "to discuss the concerning rate of human technological development and colonial expansion." Tom's heart skipped a beat as he listened. He had heard these words so many times before. They were always the same, filled with fear and suspicion. The other species were scared of humanity's rapid growth, and they didn't know how to control it. Speaker Martin continued, listing off the same old complaints about humanity. "Our studies show that humans have established 15 new colonies in the past year alone. This rapid expansion threatens the balance of the galaxy," he said. "Your technological development has exceeded safety parameters. We fear that your experiments with artificial intelligence may lead to disastrous consequences. Tom could feel the eyes of the council members on him. They were all waiting for him to respond, but he didn't speak yet. Instead, he sat in silence, his hands resting calmly on the table in front of him. He had heard these accusations before, but this time, he wasn't going to let them slide. This time, humanity was going to show the galaxy that they didn't need to be controlled. The alien faces in the room were nervous now. The fear in their eyes was obvious. They knew what was coming. They had no idea how powerful humanity had become. Tom's mind raced as he prepared to speak. He had a plan, and he was going to make sure the council understood that humanity was no longer to be underestimated. But for now, he stayed quiet. The room was still, tense with anticipation. Tom knew that the moment he spoke, everything would change. The calm before the storm was almost over. Tom Reed sat motionless in his seat as the speaker continued to address the council. His mind was racing, but he remained calm on the outside, his eyes steady, his posture rigid. The words coming from Speaker Martin's mouth were all too familiar. The accusations, the fears, the warnings, it was the same story humanity had heard from the council for decades. They were afraid of humans. They were afraid of what humans had become. The council had never seen humanity as equals. They were constantly being told they were too fast and too unpredictable. Every new colony humanity established, every new advancement in technology, only made the council more fearful. They were not just concerned about Earth's growth. They were terrified of it. The humans had done things the council had never expected and never wanted. One by one, the council members stood up to voice their concerns. Their voices echoed in the large chamber, their faces a mix of skepticism and fear. Some were familiar, others new, but the message was always the same. A gray-skinned alien stood, her body covered in intricate patterns that shifted as she moved. "The humans' use of AI is far beyond anything we've seen," she said, her voice cold and sharp. "Our own scientists cannot monitor their experiments properly. We fear this unchecked development could lead to catastrophic results." Tom felt his muscles tense. This was where it always started. Every time humanity pushed the boundaries, the council would label it as dangerous. They couldn't understand human innovation. They didn't see the potential, only the risk. Another council member, a tall, insectoid being with multiple arms and glowing green eyes, added his voice to the rising chorus of fear. "Humans have shown no regard for our established laws. Their colonies are expanding too quickly, and they ignore the peaceful balance we've maintained for millennia. This is a direct threat to the stability of the galaxy." The fear was palpable now. Every word they spoke was laced with the idea that humanity's growth could unravel everything they had worked for. But Tom knew better. The galaxy was afraid of humanity's potential, and they were terrified of what would happen if Earth truly unleashed its power. Tom's thoughts drifted back to the message from Earth Command. "Proceed as planned." It echoed in his mind like a drumbeat. Humanity had been patient for far too long. Now it was time to show the galaxy that they could no longer treat Earth as a second-rate power. The council speaker raised his hands to silence the murmurs in the room. "We propose," Speaker Martin continued, "establishing oversight committees on all human colonies. These committees will ensure that humans follow the council's protocols and prevent further threats to galactic peace." Tom's heart pounded in his chest as he heard those words. This was the moment. The council thought they could control humanity with their committees and rules. They thought they could impose their will and keep humanity in check. But what they didn't know was that humanity had grown far beyond their understanding. And today, Tom was going to show them just how wrong they were. He stood up slowly, the eyes of the council turning toward him. The room seemed to hold its breath, the tension thick in the air. He could feel the weight of the moment. This was the moment when everything changed, the moment when humanity would no longer be silenced. Tom took a deep breath and stepped forward to the central platform. His voice rang out across the chamber, clear and steady. "You speak of threats, of instability, of fear, but let me remind you, The galaxy has underestimated humanity for far too long. He paused, letting his words hang in the air. He could see the council members squirming in their seats, their eyes narrowing, their bodies tensing. They were afraid, but they didn't know why. They couldn't see what was coming. "We are not your children," Tom continued, his voice growing stronger. "We are not a threat to be controlled. We are humanity, and we will no longer bow to your fear." The council was silent. No one spoke. It was as if the room had frozen, caught in the tension of Tom's words. But he wasn't done. Not yet. Tom stepped forward, closer to the speaker's podium. "You may try to impose your rules on us, but we will not follow them. We will forge our own path, and we will not be held back by your outdated laws and your fear of change." The silence stretched on, and for a moment, it felt like time itself had stopped. Then, one by one, the council members began to stir. Some shifted in their seats, others exchanged glances, but no one spoke. They didn't know what to say. They had never seen humanity stand so firm, so resolute. They had always been the ones in control, but now, for the first time, they were the ones who felt powerless. Tom's eyes swept across the room, meeting the gaze of each council member. They were all afraid, and he knew it. For the first time, humanity held the power. And that was just the beginning. The room remained silent after Tom's declaration, but the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. The council members exchanged uneasy glances, as if trying to process what had just happened. This was no ordinary ambassador. Tom Reed's words echoed through their minds, and the weight of his challenge hung heavy in the room. For a moment, no one dared speak. Speaker Martin's gaze locked with Tom's, his forefingers gripping the edge of the podium tightly. The blue-skinned alien's usual calm demeanor was cracking. The foundation of his authority, the belief that the council controlled everything, was beginning to crumble. Finally, a voice broke the silence. It was the gray-skinned council member, the one who had earlier spoken of humanity's dangerous AI experiments. "You cannot be serious," she said, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Humanity cannot simply ignore the laws we have set for the galaxy. If you continue down this path, you will destabilize everything." Tom's lips curled into a thin smile. "It's not our path that is destabilizing the galaxy. It's your control. The fear you've instilled in every species here. You've made the galaxy weak with your bureaucracy. Humans don't need your permission to grow. We never did." The gray-skinned alien flinched, but she held her ground. "And yet you refuse to acknowledge the dangers. We have lived for millennia under a system of balance. Your reckless expansion could destroy everything. We cannot allow it." "Destroy everything?" Tom scoffed. "The only thing you fear is that humanity will succeed where you have failed, by pushing the boundaries of what's possible." The room buzzed with whispers. The council members, though varied in form, all shared the same belief, that stability meant stagnation, and it was this stagnation that Tom and humanity were now threatening to overturn. Another council member, a small insect-like creature with 6 legs and a series of clicking mandibles, spoke up. "Tom Reed, you may not fully comprehend the consequences of your actions. This council was formed to ensure peace across the galaxy. If you refuse to comply with our regulations, we will have no choice but to take action. We will impose sanctions, limit your colonies, and you will fall in line." Tom didn't flinch. "You really think that will stop us? You underestimate us. The people of Earth have been patient for far too long. We've built fleets, we've developed technologies you can't even imagine, and we've kept it hidden. But now, you're about to find out just what we're capable of." The insectoid alien paused, his antennae twitching nervously. The words hung in the air like a challenge. The council members looked to one another, their expressions a mix of doubt and concern. They had long assumed that humanity was just another fledgling species to be contained, but Tom's words had opened a door they didn't want to walk through. "Your arrogance," the gray-skinned alien spat, "will be your downfall. Reed, Do you really think your species is prepared for the consequences of defying us? Tom didn't hesitate. No, we're not prepared, but we're ready. And that's all that matters. For the first time in decades, the Council felt the sting of uncertainty. They were no longer the unquestioned rulers of the galaxy. Humanity had made its first move, and it was a move they couldn't ignore. Suddenly, the large doors to the Council chamber opened, interrupting the tense standoff. A human aide rushed in, holding a small datapad. He approached Tom with a quick nod. Ambassador Reed, Earth Command has confirmed the first phase of our strategy is complete. The fleet is in position, and we're ready to move forward as planned. The words hit the Council members like a physical blow. They hadn't expected this. They had thought Tom was merely posturing, trying to assert some dominance, but now it was clear. Humanity had taken steps they couldn't have imagined. There was no going back. Earth was prepared for a conflict, and the Council would have to face the consequences. Tom turned to face the Council, his eyes cold with resolve. This is just the beginning. Humanity will not be pushed aside any longer. You've had your chance to lead. Now it's our turn. The room was electric with fear and disbelief. Some of the Council members had already begun to murmur, their voices filled with doubt. Tom's words were powerful, but it wasn't just his rhetoric that had shaken them. The fleet, the hidden power of humanity, was real, and it was ready. Speaker Martin, his usual calm shattered, raised his voice to restore order. This session is adjourned. We will deliberate on this matter further. But be warned, Ambassador Reed, there will be consequences for your actions. Tom didn't look back as he walked toward the exit, his steps measured, his face set in a determined expression. He knew the Council would try to retaliate. They would use all their influence to bring humanity to heel. But they didn't know what was coming. They didn't know the true strength of Earth's resolve. As Tom stepped out of the Council chamber, he knew one thing for certain. Humanity had made its first strike. The galaxy would never be the same again. The Council chamber was left in chaos. As the heavy doors of the chamber slammed shut behind Tom Reed, the murmurs and whispers of disbelief filled the air. The members of the Galactic Council were unsettled, their once unwavering confidence shattered by a single human ambassador's words. It was clear now that humanity was not just a rising power, it was an unstoppable force. Outside the Council chamber, Tom walked briskly down the hall, his mind racing. He could feel the weight of what was about to happen. The message had been sent. Now there was no turning back. Humanity was done with being passive. The time for action had arrived. Behind him, a quiet buzz echoed in the corridors as a few Council aides scrambled to relay the shocking events. But Tom didn't care. He had a mission to complete, and this was only the beginning. His job was to ensure that the rest of the galaxy understood one simple fact. Humanity would no longer be a pawn in the Council's game. As Tom reached his quarters, he received a secure transmission from Earth Command. The screen flickered to life, revealing a familiar face, General Amanda Hayes. Her expression was serious, the weight of their shared task evident in her eyes. Tom, she began without preamble. Everything is in motion. Our fleets are positioned, and the first wave of reinforcements is en route. The Council won't know what hit them. Tom nodded, though the action felt mechanical. This was it. The moment he had worked toward for years had finally arrived. The Council had pushed humanity too far, and now they would face the consequences. "We're ready," Tom replied, his voice steady. "But there's more we need to do. They'll retaliate. We need to show them that we're not just ready to fight. We're ready to win." General Hayes gave a sharp nod. "Understood. Earth Command has deployed our hidden fleets as planned. We've kept them off the Council's radar, but once we unleash them, there's no going back. This galaxy will never be the same." Tom stared at the screen, his mind sharp and focused. "I've warned the Council. Let's make sure they understand that the humans they've underestimated are now in charge." As the transmission ended, Tom turned away, his gaze fixed on the stars outside his window. Humanity had kept its true strength hidden for too long. The Galactic Council had thought they could control Earth with their regulations and threats, but what they didn't know was that the people of Earth had been preparing. They had been waiting for this moment. And now it was finally here. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the fleets of Earth were silently moving into position. Thousands of ships, hidden from the Council's surveillance, were preparing to strike. These were no ordinary ships. They were Earth's secret armada, equipped with advanced weaponry that no alien race had ever encountered. On the outskirts of the galaxy, the fleet's commander, Admiral Richard Holt, surveyed the holographic map of the Council's territory. His hands hovered over the controls as he gave the order, "Deploy the first wave." The ships moved swiftly, their engines humming with silent power as they slipped into their assigned positions. The Galactic Council had no idea what was coming. The humans had always been underestimated, their abilities ignored. But now, they would see the full extent of Earth's might. Back on the Council planet, Speaker Martin sat in his private chambers, staring at the report that had just come in. The news had hit like a thunderclap. Earth's fleet had moved. The ships were in position. And worst of all, they had done it without the Council's knowledge. The Council had always believed they controlled the galaxy, but in that moment, they realized just how little they truly understood about humanity. "I warned them," Martin muttered to himself, his blue skin pale with shock. "We can't let this happen." He immediately called for an emergency council session. The stakes had never been higher. The galaxy was on the brink of war, and it was all because of one simple truth. Humanity had finally awakened, and the Council had no idea how to stop them. As the Council members gathered in the chamber once again, the atmosphere was tense. They had come to terms with the reality that humanity was no longer a species to be controlled. They were an enemy, and they had to be stopped at all costs. But in the far reaches of the galaxy, Tom Reed stood poised, ready for the next step in his plan. His eyes were focused, his resolve unshakable. The battle had just begun, and Earth was about to show the galaxy just how powerful they could be. The time for negotiations had passed. Now the only thing that mattered was victory. The humans had made their move, and the Council's complacency would no longer protect them. In this fourth part, the tension escalates as Earth's hidden fleet prepares to reveal itself to the Galactic Council. Tom Reed's calculated actions and the deployment of Earth's secret armada mark the beginning of a dangerous new chapter. The Council's panic sets the stage for an epic showdown, leaving the audience eager to see how the humans will respond to the Council's inevitable retaliation. The power struggle is about to reach its boiling point, and no one is safe from the consequences. The moment Tom Reed had warned about had arrived. The Galactic Council had finally realized that their quiet, controlled galaxy was about to be torn apart. They had thought humanity was too young, too inexperienced to make a dent in their centuries-old control. They were wrong. The first wave of Earth's hidden fleet moved silently through the darkness of space. Hundreds of ships, each one outfitted with weaponry the Council had never seen, cut through the void like predators stalking their prey. These were not just warships. They were symbols of humanity's unshakable resolve. A message had been sent. Humanity was done with being underestimated. On Earth's command station, Admiral Holt's eyes never left the holographic map as the fleet advanced. "Prepare for deployment of Phase 2, he ordered. Behind him, the officers at their stations moved quickly, adjusting controls and making final preparations for the next stage of the operation. Holt's mind was sharp, and his gut told him they were about to witness something monumental. Meanwhile, in the Council's Central Command Center, Speaker Martin and the other Council members were grappling with the sudden, shocking truth. The humans were not just defending themselves. They were launching a full-scale offensive. The reports were coming in fast. Earth's fleet had crossed into Council space, and the first wave had attacked a minor outpost without warning. "They've already struck," Martin said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They didn't wait for us to react. They moved first." One of the Council members, a tall, tentacled alien, slammed its fist on the table. This is a declaration of war. The chamber was filled with panic. The Council had never expected the humans to act so swiftly, so decisively. They had underestimated humanity's capacity for action, and now they were paying the price. "Send a message to the fleet," Speaker Martin ordered, trying to regain some measure of control. "We need to counterattack immediately." Back in the command station of the human fleet, Admiral Holt watched as the Council's response unfolded. It didn't matter. The first wave had already done its job. Earth's ships had established a foothold, and now the rest of the fleet was ready to move in. "Phase 2, Holt ordered again, his voice calm yet filled with purpose. In the heart of the galaxy, Earth's fleet was poised to strike again. This time, it wasn't just a minor outpost. They were targeting one of the Council's most powerful defensive positions, a heavily fortified military station that had once been the pride of the Galactic Council's power. The humans were not just making a statement, they were breaking the Council's backbone. As the ships moved into position, the Council's forces scrambled to respond, but it was already too late. Earth's advanced technology had already outpaced their defenses. The first wave of missiles launched from Earth's fleet were so precise, so devastating, that the Council's forces couldn't even mount a proper defense. One by one, the station's defense systems fell, its shields collapsing under the intense barrage. Within moments, it was no longer a bastion of power. It was a heap of debris drifting in space. Admiral Holt stood at the center of the command room, watching the destruction unfold on the large screen. His expression remained unreadable, though inside, he couldn't help but feel a rush of adrenaline. This was only the beginning. The humans had sent a clear message. The Council's reign was over. As the last remnants of the station disappeared into the darkness of space, Holt gave a single nod. "Initiate Phase 3. We press on." Tom Reed, watching from Earth, felt a strange sense of calm. The first strike had been successful, but this was only the first of many. The Council may have been shaken, but they would respond with force. Earth would need to be ready for the inevitable retaliation. But Tom knew one thing. The humans had only just begun to fight. As the ships of the human fleet continued their advance into deeper Council space, a ripple of fear began to spread among the galactic leaders. For the first time in centuries, they were facing a real threat, one that was no longer bound by their laws or limitations. The Council had always believed that they were the dominant force in the galaxy. They had always expected their advanced technology and vast numbers to keep the lesser species in check. But now, they were learning the painful truth. Humanity was not like any other species. They didn't follow the rules. They didn't wait for permission. They simply acted. The Galactic Council, which had once considered humanity a nuisance, was now terrified. And the human fleet was just getting started. The shockwaves of the attack sent ripples through the Galactic Council like a thunderstorm stirring the calm. On the outer edges of Council space, where once the Council's forces patrolled without worry, now lay the wreckage of one of their finest military outposts. And that was just the beginning. Earth's fleet had made its first move, and the galactic leaders could no longer pretend they had everything under control. Within the Council chamber, Speaker Martin stood at the front, his tall blue frame tense and rigid as the latest reports flooded in. His alien eyes, usually cool and calculating, were now wide with unease. "Is this really happening?" he muttered under his breath. The room was filled with murmurs of disbelief and panic. There was no denying it now. Humanity had thrown the gauntlet down, and it was a challenge they were ready to answer. "Speaker Martin," a voice called from the back of the room. It was one of the Council members, an insectoid species with compound eyes and a chitinous exoskeleton. "What do we do? How do we respond to this attack? They've breached our defenses with terrifying ease." Another Council member, a reptilian creature with dark green scales, nodded solemnly. "We've always believed that humanity was weak, but now we see that they've built an unimaginable force, a force we've been blind to for too long." What do we do? Speaker Martin clenched his fists. We fight back, of course. But this is not just a matter of retaliating. This is war. We need every ship we can muster. But as he spoke, the message from Earth Command had already begun to circulate, cutting through the Council's defenses like a blade through water. It was brief, direct, and unequivocal. Earth's message is clear. The message began. We are not here to take part in your stagnant peace, nor to cower under your restrictions. We are here to rise. We are here to bring an end to the change you've placed upon the galaxy. If you want war, we will bring it. If you want peace, we will bring that too, but only on our terms. Back on Earth, Admiral Holt was watching the unfolding chaos in real time. The Council had just begun mobilizing its forces in an attempt to respond to the human threat, but Holt knew this would be no easy fight. He had anticipated this. After all, the Galactic Council was vast, powerful, and they wouldn't take the humans' rebellion lying down. But Holt had something else in mind. The humans had learned, adapted, and evolved beyond the Council's expectations. Phase 4, Admiral Holt ordered calmly. Time to show them what we've really been building. The human fleet, now emboldened by their early victories, began moving deeper into Council space. As the ships cruised through the emptiness of space, their orders were clear. Each strike would hit a key location. A military base here, a supply depot there. Each attack, small but significant, would cripple the Council's ability to fight back, weakening them without giving them the chance to retaliate. Meanwhile, Tom Reed, back on Earth, watched the holographic map of their fleet's movement with a solemn look. They thought we were children, he muttered. Now, they will see the truth. Humanity has always been capable of more than they gave us credit for. He stood before the message display, which now flashed with incoming reports about the progress of their strikes. A victory here, another strategic position claimed there. But something in Reed's mind told him that they had only scratched the surface. We need to be careful. The Council won't fall easily, Reed said aloud, more to himself than to anyone else in the room. They're not weak. They're just unaware of what we've been preparing. That's going to change. But it was too late for caution now. Earth's fleet had already begun Phase 5 of their plan. Sabotage. Across the Council's vast empire, key infrastructure began to crumble. Communication networks went dark. Trade routes were disrupted. Fleet command posts fell silent. The Council had always prided itself on its ability to control information and logistics, but now their greatest strength had turned into their greatest weakness. Each strike from Earth's fleet seemed calculated, focused, and precise, as if they had always known where to hit and when. With the loss of communication, the Council's forces were left scrambling. No longer could they coordinate a united front. Each ship, each fleet, acted on its own, trying to deal with the chaos, but none of them could ever keep up. Humanity had set the stage for a war of attrition, one where every move was designed to wear down the Council's resolve. On one of the Council's flagship vessels, Commander Orvik, a towering alien with slick black exoskeleton and multiple eyes, watched helplessly as the chaos unfolded. This cannot be real, he said, his voice filled with disbelief. How are they doing this? They're using our own weaknesses against us, one of his officers replied. Their attacks are calculated. They're one step ahead of us. Orvik's fists clenched. We underestimated them. We will make them pay. The tide of the conflict had already begun to shift. Humanity's first strikes had been sharp and decisive. But now, it wasn't just about military might. It was about survival. The Council's leaders were beginning to realize that their carefully controlled galaxy was slipping away, and they had no idea how to stop it. The humans had made their statement, and now, it was up to the Galactic Council to decide how to react. Would they fall back into their old ways, clinging to the illusion of order and control, or would they rise to face humanity's wrath? The stakes had never been higher, and neither side was prepared for what would come next. The lights of the Galactic Council's flagship flickered erratically as the massive ship drifted through the void. Commander Orvik stood at the helm, his mind reeling with the unexpected chaos that had erupted across the galaxy. The Council, once the most powerful political entity in the universe, was now on the brink of collapse. Earth's rebellion had triggered a storm of destruction, and the galaxy was left wondering, could they survive this new threat? Report. Orvik snapped, his voice filled with frustration. The officer at his side hesitated before speaking, clearly reluctant to deliver the grim news. Admiral, the fleet is in disarray. Our forces are scattered. The communication network is still down, and our remaining ships are fighting isolated battles in multiple sectors. We can't coordinate any defenses against Earth's strikes. Orvik clenched his mandibles in anger. This was more than a setback. It was a catastrophic failure. The Council's strength had always been its unity, its ability to act as one. But now, that unity was shattered, and every decision felt like a desperate stab in the dark. They've divided us, Orvik growled. And they've done it so swiftly. How did they know our weaknesses? They've been studying us for years, the officer replied, voice trembling. All the times we dismissed their advancements, all the times we underestimated them, they were preparing. And now, we're losing. The truth hit Orvik like a slap. The humans had always been underestimated, always considered too primitive, too backward to challenge the mighty Galactic Council. But it was that very underestimation that had given humanity the upper hand. Earth's rebels had been biding their time, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, they had unleashed a fury no one had expected. Back on Earth, Admiral Holt paced in his command room, his eyes focused on the holographic displays showing their fleet's movements. The first phase of their campaign had gone as planned. But Holt knew it wasn't enough. They had to finish this. There was no turning back now. Phase 6, Holt ordered, his voice steady. Prepare the fleets for the final assault. The room buzzed with activity as officers moved to execute his command. Ships from across Earth's fleet, now united in their goal, were reassembled and primed for the largest strike yet. Holt had one final goal, to shatter the Council's nerve and prove that humanity's might was not something they could ignore. As the final preparations were underway, Tom Reed stood in his office on Earth, staring at the hologram of the Council's map. He had seen the destruction Earth's fleet had already caused, but he knew the next move would be the one that would seal their victory. It wasn't just about taking the Council down. It was about ensuring that humanity would never again be dismissed, never again be subjugated. It's time to finish what we started, Reed muttered under his breath. He turned to his staff, who were gathered behind him. This is our moment. The galaxy will know who we are. As the fleets moved into position, the final strike began. Earth's ships converged on the Council's central hub, an immense, heavily fortified station located deep in the heart of their territory. This was the Council's last line of defense, the nerve center from which all military operations and decisions had been controlled for thousands of years. The final assault was swift and brutal. The human fleet, outnumbered and outgunned by the Council's forces, had one advantage. Their ships were faster, more agile, and their attacks more unpredictable than anything the Council had ever faced. Each strike hit with precision. Each move was calculated, and the Galactic Council found itself struggling to keep up. On the flagship, Commander Orvik watched helplessly as Earth's fleet tore through their defenses, one ship at a time. The flagship's alarms blared as the hull groaned under the pressure of the incoming fire. But it was no use. The humans had achieved the impossible. They were winning. Activate the last defense, Orvik commanded, his voice barely audible over the chaos. But even as he gave the order, he knew it was too late. The Council had no more tricks, no more options. Across the galaxy, other Council ships were falling just as quickly. The rebellion had spread like wildfire. Humanity had not just challenged the Council, they had brought it to its knees. Back on Earth, Admiral Holt watched as the final wave of attacks landed. His heart raced, but there was no joy in his expression. This victory had come at a cost. The war had been brutal, and there were losses on both sides. But humanity had proven something important today, that they were not to be underestimated. "We've done it," Holt said quietly, more to himself than anyone else in the room. But even as he said the words, he knew that the fight for the galaxy's future was just beginning. The Council, once a symbol of order and power, had been shattered. But with that destruction came a new era. The humans had taken their place among the stars, not as children, not as subordinates, but as equals. And while the galaxy would now have to adjust to this new reality, one thing was certain. Humanity had risen to become a force that no one, not even the ancient Galactic Council, could ever ignore again. As the story concludes, the tide of battle has shifted completely. Earth's fleet has delivered the final blow to the Council's central defense, and humanity's victory is assured. The Galactic Council's reign of power has ended, and Earth has claimed its place as a dominant force in the galaxy. This victory marks the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history, one in which humanity is no longer the underdog, but a powerful player in the cosmic arena. The galaxy, forever changed by this rebellion, must now reckon with the truth. Humanity is not to be underestimated.